It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us to talk about his book, Prayer Everywhere, The Spiritual Life Made Simple, is Father Gary Castor. Thank you for being here, Father.
Thank you for inviting me on your show.
I was looking through the description of the book, and it says, the best possible experience of life comes from following Christ. I should know because I have the best life of anyone I know. Was that a quote from you?
Yes, it is, because it's true. I do have the best life of anyone I know. And my friends, I know they kind of get tired of me saying it, but I think actually inside they kind of appreciate me saying it. But I do. Because of my life with Christ, I have such an incredible life, undeserved, but fully grateful for it.
Why? Why is your life so good?
Because first of all, because of the people that God has put into my life. Mm-hmm. I used to tell my high school students that the only reason that I met any of them was because I said yes to Christ, and that continues to be the case. There are incredible people that I only know because I said yes to following Christ, and then yes to his invitation to serve him as a priest. And that has continued throughout the 25 years of my priesthood. Just the most amazing people, the most amazing faith-filled people, the most amazing situations and circumstances. Getting to spend years working with Mother Teresa and her sisters and developing a friendship with her. I'm sorry, St. Teresa of Calcutta. So,
sure, yeah.
It's very hard for me to think of her that way because of all the years that I knew her, and just tremendous married people. God spoils me. I expect him to, but he spoils me, so I love my life.
Well, and
it's all because of Christ.
Yeah. I want to get into that a little bit more. Before we do, though, looking back at church history, it's come a long way from being a small group of disciples that are following a guy around in Israel to billions of Christians now. So even with Catholicism having a common liturgy that's all over the world, for the most part, there's still a lot of variety in spiritual practices and devotions. What are some of the benefits of that variety?
Well, I think that the variety speaks to the way in which the Lord relates to each one of us individually. I mean, St. Augustine said, he loves all of us as if there were only one of us. And I think that with respect to the rich spiritual treasury of the Church, even the different liturgical practices, the Ambrosian rite or the Carthusian rite or the Maronite rite, the Lord is still touching people in an individual way. And you mentioned devotions. That's a fantastic way for people to connect with Christ in a way that is suited to their own disposition and temperament. Mm-hmm. The beauty of the Church, she doesn't impose one rule of spirituality on all of us, but she, like a wise and caring mother, expects each of us to find what we need to adhere to following Christ and to hold on to those things, to choose those things. And that's really one of the reasons for the book, other than I had students nagging me to write it, but is to let people know that it's really a very simple thing to open your life to God on a daily basis and to discover the ways in which you can continue to hold on to the movement of the Spirit in your life and to continue following Christ.
In what ways do you think we overcomplicate things?
Well, the first is that we try to impose upon ourselves spiritual practices that we think are necessary. And usually it's because we look at somebody that we admire or whose life of faith stands out to us, and so we think we have to do exactly what they're doing. And a lot of times that just leads to frustration. I mean, somebody will say, "Okay, I'm gonna pray the divine office every day." Well, if you're married and you have children and you have a job, that's kind of impractical. I mean, it's great that you want to do that, but again, the wisdom of the Church, we have to find the things. I made a promise to pray the Liturgy of the Hours every day, so that's different. But we have to look at our lives, each of us, our state of life should be the foundation by which we approach what we're going to do in terms of nurturing our relationship with Christ. And I think that's the chief way that people complicate it. Well, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do all these things, and it's not the things that bring us closer to Christ. First and foremost, we have to carve out time each day to spend in conversation with Christ. And then the practices that we take on spill into that time of conversation, and that time of conversation spills into the practices. I tell people you can come up with your own devotions. Most of the most popular devotions that are in the church presented to people because there were so many people finding them enriching. But you can really come up with your own life of devotion. And in part of the book, I tell people some of the things that I do that are unique to me. And again, this is the beauty of how Christ responds to each one of us in an individual, in an intimate and a personal way. So find the things that we have the responsibility to find the things that work for us and to hold fast to them. And there's a lot of choices.
I like that.
A lot of choices.
Yeah. We're talking with Father Gary Castor. The book is Prayer Everywhere, The Spiritual Life Made Simple. And by simple, are you implying that it's also going to be easy?
Well, I think that there can be difficulties at different points along the pathway of following Christ. I think in times of transition, our spiritual life can be unsettled. So the simplicity with which God is simple, it's a philosophical principle. So we have to stand our ground, so to speak, with that basic concept. And then what could be difficult is the process of identifying the things that touch our heart and keep us related to Him and keep us following Him. But I don't think that it's complicated. If I was created for God, then it would be kind of odd to say that I'm created for God, but it's really complicated and difficult for me to live with what I'm created for, to live the way I was created. And I think that's one of the foundational messages of Christ. And He came to let us know that the fact of sin didn't take God's desire for us away from God, and it made us lose sight of what we were created for. And now in Christ, we know who we have become and what we are, and we can live this way. And I think that it is simple to follow Him. And yeah, there might be times when it's going to be tough because you're going to have to say no to yourself. Mm-hmm. But it's also liberating too. And I think the more that people discover that the way in which we live out our relationship with Christ can be as simple as discovering what speaks to one's heart, then they'll see the movement ever closer towards Him and towards the Father is really not as difficult as some people want to make it out and describe it. And been a follower of Jesus since I was 9 years old on a Thursday afternoon in June when I had a great experience of the presence of Christ. And it didn't make me perfect, and it didn't make me perfectly virtuous, and it didn't make me a theological wizard, but it began the process of the transformation of my life. And this transformation is continuing. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be transformed by Christ. So there's no greater way to live. Go back to the beginning. Yeah. There's no greater way to live.
So when we're talking about all these different prayer styles and devotions and things, whether it be daily mass or rosaries or fasting or tithing, how do we know if there's something that maybe is difficult or it doesn't seem to be spiritually nourishing and we don't get any good, warm, fuzzy feelings from it? How do we know, like, this is something I shouldn't be doing, I should find something else, versus this is something that I can offer up to God and maybe I'll eventually get something out of it?
Well, it's a very good question. St. Teresa of Avila addressed this herself about throwing away the things that aren't nurturing you and finding ones that do. Mm-hmm. I think the first question to ask is, okay, before just tossing everything out, this doesn't suit me, this doesn't suit me, this doesn't suit me, is first, why did I choose this to begin with? What was my motivation? And let's say I'm going to fast. Okay, what was my motivation to using fasting as a part of my spiritual life? And really, to be honest with oneself, was it because it's going to help me lose weight, or what was my real desire in choosing this? And why did I think that this would appeal to me? So that's the first question with anything. A lot of times people say, I'm going to pick up the Bible and start reading it. Well, It wasn't meant to be read that way, but okay. What's your desire? What's your fundamental desire in picking up the Bible? Was it because you think something's lacking? And this would be an easy way to sort of to think that you're getting in contact. So I think those are the questions when it comes to the things that we choose. That question has to be said, what was my initial motivation for choosing this? Mm-hmm. And then if we find, the motivation was good, okay, then when I first started this practice, what was it how did it touch me? What were the effects of this practice initially when I started it? I mean, I'll give you an example. So Mother Teresa suggested to me in 1986 that every morning I should say good morning to Jesus. I thought it was kind of silly because I'm a man, but She was Mother Teresa of Calcutta, so okay. I started doing it. So I noticed that even before going to morning prayer, just a simple little act like that, it had already brought me back into what is essential in my life, that I have this relationship that matters to me. A simple little thing, is saying that out loud, good morning, Jesus. Actually saying it
out loud.
Yes, already began to center my day on Christ. I know it's a double negative, but I can't not say good morning to Jesus. It just comes out of me in the morning, not always with great alacrity, but I always say good morning because we age and mornings are different. So every day is a new day, but some days we're more excited about them than others. But it's something that I could see the effects that it had in my life, that it was having, something as simple as that. And so I think that's what we need to do. She suggested this to me. I tried it. I saw the effects that it was having, and so it's become a habit. And I think this is important about our spiritual habits, is that like our relationship with Jesus, sometimes our spiritual habits, we're not going to get, you said, warm fuzzies. Our feelings are not a barometer of our growth in our relationship with Christ. Our growth in charity is the only barometer of our growth in our relationship with Christ. And so, if we're thinking, this just doesn't seem to be feeding my soul anymore, go back to the beginning. Why did you start it? How did it touch you? What was it that attracted you to this particular thing? To praying the rosary, to saying the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, the Chaplet of the Precious Blood. Ask those questions. Again, be honest with them and say, okay, maybe the Lord will say, all right, we all grow, and as we grow, our lives expand, hopefully, in Christ. And so things that we might not have been able to do or had no desire to do when we were younger or at other stages in our life now seem to really speak to our heart. And pay attention to that, this attraction, this natural spiritual attraction.
Well, where can we send people to get a copy of the book?
FranciscanMedia.org or Amazon.com.
All right. Again, it's called Prayer Everywhere, The Spiritual Life Made Simple. I really like this. I think it's going to be really helpful, and I like that. I think I can handle the Good Morning Jesus part at least, and then I'll work up from there. So I think that's a good start.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Father Gary Castor, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. This is great.
Thank you, Kyle.